All right, I thought today we would start off with doing a full meal of steak, potatoes, and green beans. I have a couple of 1.5 inch thick New York strip steaks that we are going to sous vide. Sous vide is one of my favorite methods for doing steaks because it's kind of foolproof as far as your doneness level. I have my sous vide set at about 132 degrees Fahrenheit, 135 for perfect medium rare. So I'm going a little under on that. Now we're going to move on to the potato puffs, and I'm going to start by peeling some Yukon Gold potatoes. What I'm looking for is about 2 cups of mashed Yukon Gold potatoes. We're going to add our potatoes to a cold pot of water that we've salted, and then we're going to bring that up to a simmer for probably about 15 minutes, just until the potatoes are tender. And once those are tender, we're going to pull those out. We're apparently in art film now, as I turned on a black and white filter on my camera. But the best way to get your potatoes really smooth is to use a potato ricer. They're pretty cheap, but you'll get your potatoes in a really fine position, and then you can just stir them smooth. So the next thing we're going to do is work on a choux dough, we're going to take a 1/4 cup of butter, a 1/4 cup of water, and then we're going to add a 1/2 cup of flour to that. Didn't apparently get that on the film, but that's what we did. We're then going to take that out of the pan, and we're going to add it to a bowl. Once that's cooled off a little bit, I'm going to add 2 beaten eggs. And then, once that's mixed, we're going to add 2 cups of our mashed potato. Again, those mashed potatoes aren't like, what you would serve. They don't already have a bunch of other butter and so forth in them. So then we're going to scoop that into muffin tins and bake at 450 for about 20 minutes. We're going to go ahead and blanch our green beans. Basically what that means is we're going to boil these for about 3.5 minutes. So we don't want them to get soggy. We want them to stay crisp. And then once they have been blanched, once they have gone through that, we're going to pull them out and shock them in an ice bath, which is going to help to really set that color. But you'll see that these green beans are still really nice and firm when it comes time to actually finishing these, which we'll do just a few minutes really before we want to put the whole meal together. For the potato puffs, I figured we'd make a quick gravy. So we're just going to start with a roux, and that's just equal parts butter and flour. So I'm doing 2 tablespoons of each into a small pot. Once we get a little bit of color on that roux, we can go ahead and start adding a little bit of stock. And then we're going to go until we get it to the thickness that we desire. So you're going to want to season your gravy as well, salt, pepper, whatever other herbs you like. I'm actually also using a little bit of this. It's an au jus starter that somebody had recommended to me. It has a nice flavor in it, so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to cheat a little bit and throw some of that into my gravy. Once I have that to where I want it, I'm just going to set that to the side, and we'll go ahead, and once we're about 10 minutes out from dinner, I'm going to start working on this. I'm going to add some bacon into the pan. You can actually add a little bit of water to that as well. The reason for that is that the water will allow the bacon to render out its fat without burning. Then once the bacon is crisped up, we'll pull that out, and I'm going to throw in a handful of pine nuts. Now I don't want to burn these. I just want to get a little bit of heat on them, maybe get a little bit of color on them. And once those are done, we'll go ahead and add in some red onion. once my onions have softened up a decent amount, I'm going to go ahead and add my green beans back in. And we're just going to toss those in all of that goodness with the bacon fat and the onions and the pine nuts. And you'll notice that those beans are still nice and deep green from the blanching that we had done earlier. The other thing that we're going to do to this is we're going to add the bacon back in here in just a sec. And that finishes off your skillet beans side dish. Our sides are basically done at this point, so we can pull the steaks out of the sous vide. The nice thing, you can leave the steaks in longer if you need to. But the first thing we want to do is we want to pat these things dry, because if they're wet, then they're not going to get any color. It's just going to steam once it goes into the pan. I'm doing this with a cast iron pan. You can do this with, if you have like a flamethrower torch or something like that, you can do that outside. But once that pan is ripping hot, we're going to throw the steaks in. We're going to go about a minute, minute and a half on each side. If you don't like how much of a crust you're getting on it, you can continue to flip them. Don't buy into that, oh, the Maillard reaction is not going to happen if I flip it. No, just go until you get the color that you want. So now we're just going to trim these steaks up, slice them, and we're ready to plate. So I just threw a little bit of gravy down on the plate and put the potatoes on top of that. I've got my beans, and we've got our steak. I think that's a pretty decent looking dinner.
And there we go. I don't know if I can get all this in here. Oh, yeah. So we got our mid-rare steak. We've got our potato puffs that I have sitting on some gravy. And we have our skillet beans with bacon and pine nuts. So let's give this a taste. First of all, steak. Sous vide steak. Then I'm going to have some of this potato puff. A little bit of this gravy on it too. See? Oh, that's nice. And my green beans, haricot vert, whatever. Bacon and pine nuts. And red onion. It's a little bit of work to do all of these, I'm not going to lie. But your end result is very much worth it. So I'm going to pour myself a glass of wine, I think. It's not normal for me, but it just seems fitting with this. And you guys have a great rest of your day.